Hi friends, welcome to Jignasa Smart Entertainment. Today's story is The Superstar, a story of fame, betrayal, added with mystery. Who is your favorite movie star? I'm sure every one of us have one. What do they do when they're no longer in limelight? This is one such story. After the crowd, after the cameras, after 40 years of people shouting your name so loudly that the sound became the very air you breathed. And then, one day, it stopped. That is the silence Vijay Khanna lived in. If you grew up in India between 1975 and 1995, you knew Vijay Khanna. You knew his walk, that slow, sure walk, shoulders back, head held high, like a man who had already won every fight before it even started. You knew his voice, deep and calm, like thunder that takes its time to arrive. You knew his smile, the one that came only at the end of a scene, when he looked straight at the camera and made every single person watching feel like he was looking directly at them. Vijay Khanna was not just a superstar. He was a legend. His first film came out in 1974. He played a poor boy from the streets who fought dishonest politicians and cruel landlords. The film was made with very little money. Nobody expected much from it. It ran in theaters for 2 full years. After that, there was no stopping him. Film after film after film. Action films, mostly. People did not just watch his movies. They worshipped them. Fathers brought their sons. Mothers brought their daughters. Old people who had never been to a cinema in their lives sat in the front row and watched Vijay Khanna defeat the villain, and felt, for 2.5 hours, that the world was a good and fair place. He gave people that feeling. That rare and precious feeling. His most famous line came from his 1987 film, Tufan. Just 6 simple words. Main hoon, to sab theek hai. Meaning, I am here. So everything is alright. For 20 years, nobody in Bollywood could touch him. But time does not care about fame. By the year 2000, things had changed. New, younger faces had arrived. The big producers who used to call Vijay 3 times a day were now calling these new young men. The big budgets, the grand film sets, the trips to foreign countries, all of it was going somewhere else now. Vijay was still getting offers. But they were different. Supporting roles. The father of the hero. The wise old man who gives advice and then dies in the second half of the film. Vijay Khanna, playing someone's father. He said no to every single one. He told his secretary, a sharp and loyal woman named Malvika, who had worked beside him for 18 long years, that he was waiting for the right script. A lead role, a real film, something worthy of Vijay Khanna. Malvika said nothing. She had learned, over 18 years, when to speak and when to simply nod and wait. The years passed. The calls became fewer, then rare, then almost none at all. Vijay's big white bungalow in Juhu became quieter and quieter. The parties stopped. The visitors stopped. The journalists who used to wait outside his gates for just one line from him had long moved on to newer stars. The gates stayed closed. Inside, Vijay lived in a world of his own. Every evening, he would go to his private screening room, a small, dark room with 12 leather seats and a giant screen, and he would watch his old films. Tufan, Andhi, Lohit, Sher Ka Panja, Rahgir, one after another, night after night. Always with a glass of whiskey in his hand. For those 2 or 3 hours, the silence would lift. The roar would come back. And Vijay Khanna would feel, just for a little while, like himself again. Vijay said nothing for a long time. On the screen, his younger self spoke the famous 6 words. Main hoon, to sab theek hai. I am still here, Malvika, Vijay said softly. So everything is still alright. Malvika did not argue. She got up quietly and left. And Vijay sat alone in the dark with his past. It was a Tuesday evening in October when Vijay Khanna drank too much. This was not unusual. What was unusual was that he drank far more than even he normally did, and at some point deep in the night, his body simply shut down. Malvika found him on the floor of the screening room at midnight. The old film was still playing on the screen. His whiskey glass was on its side. She called the ambulance quietly, without waking anyone else. He was taken to Leelavati Hospital. The emergency room was busy that night. Nurses moved quickly between patients. Monitors beeped. The lights were too bright for that hour. And among those nurses, moving faster than most, sharper than most, was a young woman named Deepika. Deepika was 18 years old. She had come to Mumbai from a small town in Rajasthan 2 years earlier with just two things, a nursing certificate and a dream so big it barely fit inside her chest. She wanted to be an actress. She had wanted it since she was 6 years old, sitting in her village's one small cinema hall. She was working as a nurse to pay her bills while she waited for her chance. She was beautiful, not in a way that needed effort, but in a way that made people stop mid-sentence and forget what they were saying. And she was, from the very bottom of her heart, a huge fan of Vijay Khanna. She had watched every single one of his films. She knew every dialogue, every song, every scene. When the ambulance brought him in and she saw the name on the form, her hands went completely still. Vijay Khanna. She looked up. The man on the stretcher was older than the man she knew from the films. His hair was silver. His face had lines. He looked smaller somehow, the way all very famous people look smaller when you see them without the cameras and the lights and the music. But it was him. Without any doubt at all, it was him. Deepika took a slow breath. She straightened her uniform. And she became the best nurse in that hospital that night. Vijay stayed in the hospital for 4 days. And for those 4 days, Deepika barely left his side. She was professional, completely professional. She checked his condition, managed his medicines, made sure his room was quiet and clean and comfortable. She did everything a good nurse was supposed to do. But she did it with a care and attention that was different from routine duty. On the second day, Vijay opened his eyes fully and looked at her. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice was rough. "Deepika," she said, adjusting his drip. "I am your nurse. You look like someone," he said. "I get that a lot," she replied with a small smile. "Who are you when you are not a nurse?" he asked. "An actress." One day, she said simply. Vijay studied her for a moment. Then he closed his eyes again. On the third day, something changed. Deepika came during her break, she did not have to, and sat in the chair beside his bed. She was quiet for a moment. And then, softly, barely above a whisper, she began to hum. The tune was from Tufan, his 1987 film. The famous theme song that played every time Vijay's character walked into a scene and the world knew that everything was about to be alright. Vijay opened his eyes slowly. "Nobody has hummed that in a very long time," he said. "My father used to hum it every morning while making tea," she said. He said it made him feel like he could handle anything the day threw at him. "He sounds like a wise man," Vijay said. "He was. He passed away 3 years ago," she said quietly. Silence sat between them, a comfortable silence. Then Deepika took out her phone and held it out to him. She had opened a clip from Rahgir, his 1991 film. The scene where his character, after losing everything he had, stands at a crossroads in the pouring rain and gives a speech about getting back up off the ground. "I watched this scene on the night my father died," she said. 4 times in a row. And on the 4th time, I finally stopped crying. Vijay looked at the small screen. His younger self, soaking wet, voice rising above the sound of heavy rain. "You actually watched that film?" he said. And there was real wonder in his voice, like a man who had forgotten that his work still existed somewhere in the world, still touching people. "I have watched all your films," she said simply. "Every single one. At least 17 times each." Vijay laughed. A real, full laugh, unexpected and unpracticed. It surprised even him. By the 4th day, when it was time to go home, Vijay was sitting up straight. His color was back. And his eyes had something in them that Malvika, who came to collect him, had not seen in a very long time. Life. After leaving the hospital, Vijay could not stop thinking about Deepika. She had reminded him of something important. Of what it felt like to have someone look at his work, not at his fame, not at his past, not at how many tickets he had sold, but at what he had actually made and put into the world. She had hummed his theme song while he lay in a hospital bed at his very lowest. And it had felt like fresh air after a long time in a closed room. He called her. She came to his bungalow. Wide-eyed at the gate. Wide-eyed at the driveway. Wide-eyed at the giant film posters that lined the entrance hallway. She touched the frames with her fingertips, like she was touching something holy. In his screening room, she sat in the center seat, his seat, though she did not know that, and watched a scene from Tufan on the enormous screen. Her face was so completely alive and lit up that Vijay stood in the doorway and watched her instead of the film. He made a decision that evening. He called Ramesh Patel, an old producer, 65 years old, who had made 4 of Vijay's biggest films back in the 1980s. They had not spoken in nearly 10 years. I have found a girl, Ramesh. A real find. Something truly special about her. I want you to meet her. Is she trained? Ramesh asked. She will be. Give her a chance. Do it for me. A long pause on the line. Vijay, you know I cannot sign someone just because you ask. The budgets, the investors. Do it for me, Vijay said again. Quietly, with the full weight of 40 years of friendship behind those 4 words. Another long pause. Send me a photograph, Ramesh said finally. Vijay smiled. Over the next 3 months, Vijay Khanna used every relationship he had built in 40 years in the film industry. He called producers, directors, casting agents, people who owed him favors going back decades, people who still picked up his calls because you simply do not stop respecting Vijay Khanna, even if you had stopped calling him for work. He got Deepika meetings, screen tests, introductions to the right people. And Deepika, who was not just beautiful but genuinely talented, genuinely hungry, genuinely magnetic in front of a camera, delivered in every single room she walked into. During this time, she spent more and more hours at Vijay's home. He would show her films, his films, other people's films, old Hollywood classics, and explain what made a scene truly work. What the camera was really looking for. How to be completely still when everything inside you wanted to move. She listened to everything, she absorbed everything, and she flattered him, constantly, beautifully. She would quote his famous lines back to him at unexpected moments. She would describe scenes from his films with such specific detail that he was amazed she had remembered it all. She would look at him, across the dining table, across the garden, with that expression that said, without words, "You are the most extraordinary man I have ever known." Vijay, who had been divorced for 11 years, whose marriage had slowly broken apart under the weight of too many late nights and too much whiskey, and a wife who had finally, gently, said she could not live in the shadow of his fame any longer, Vijay had not been looked at like that in a very long time. He was 62 years old. She was 18. He knew it was foolish. He fell anyway. Malvika watched all of this from a careful distance. One evening she sat beside him and said very quietly, "Be careful, Vijay Saab." "Of what?" he said. "Of mixing up gratitude and love. Hers, and yours both. You worry too much," he said. "Yes," she said simply. "I do." And she left it there. For now. Deepika's first film was called Pehli Barish. It was a medium-budget love story. Not a huge production, not the most famous director. But the script was good. And Deepika, from the very first day of filming, was something else entirely. There is a quality that some people have in front of a camera. An aliveness. A truth. Something that cannot be taught and cannot be copied. The camera finds it and makes it larger than life. Deepika had this fully and completely. The film came out on a regular Friday in March. By Saturday morning, the reviews were extraordinary. By Sunday, the box office numbers made the whole industry sit up and pay attention. By the following Friday, Pehli Barish was the biggest surprise hit of the year. And at the center of all the talk, all the excitement, all the celebrations, one name. Deepika. Her phone did not stop ringing. Producers, directors, big brands, award shows. The entire industry turned its face toward her like a field of flowers turning toward the morning sun. Vijay heard the news from Malvika on Saturday morning. He was sitting in the garden with his morning tea. He read the reviews slowly, one by one. A wide, real, proud smile spread across his face. "I knew it," he said. "I knew it from the very first moment I saw her." He called Deepika. She picked up immediately, breathless, laughing, crying a little all at the same time. "Vijay Saab, have you seen the numbers? Have you seen the reviews? I have seen everything, he said. You did it, Deepika. We did it, she said. You made this happen. I am coming tonight. I want to come and touch your feet and thank you properly. Tonight, I promise you. Tonight, Vijay agreed. He was smiling when he put the phone down. He told the cook to make a proper dinner. He told Malvika to prepare the screening room. He even changed his clothes twice, settling finally on a dark navy kurta. He waited. 8 o'clock came, then 9, then 10. At 11, he called her. The phone rang and went to voicemail. He told himself she was busy. She was celebrating with her new producers, her new team. Of course she was. She would come tomorrow. Tomorrow came, and the day after, and the day after that. Deepika did not come. A week passed. Vijay sat in his garden one morning and said nothing for a long time. Then he looked at Malvika and said, very quietly, tell me what you think happened. Malvika had been waiting for this moment. She sat down slowly. I think she studied you, Vijay Saab, very carefully, before she ever walked into that hospital. I think she knew every song, every dialogue, every weakness, because she had done her homework long before she met you. Vijay was still. His face showed nothing. The way she quoted your lines, Malvika continued, it was too perfect. Too exact. Real fans sometimes get things slightly wrong. They mix up a word. They remember a scene from the wrong film. Deepika never once made a mistake. Not once in all those months. Vijay nodded slowly, like a man receiving a truth he had already known somewhere deep inside but had chosen not to look at directly. I need to know for certain, he said finally. Yes, said Malvika. So do I. Vijay leaned back in his chair and looked up at the sky for a long moment. Then that slow, careful expression came to his face, the one his fans knew from the films, the one that appeared just before his character made his most important move. Call Rajan Nair, he said. Rajan Nair was the most well-known entertainment journalist in the country. He had been writing about Bollywood for 30 years. He and Vijay went back a very long time, back to the early days, when Vijay was still a newcomer and Rajan was still a junior reporter at a small film magazine. They had grown up in this industry together. Rajan came to Vijay's house the next morning. They sat in the garden and spoke for 2 hours. Vijay told him everything, what he suspected, what Malvika had observed, and what he wanted to find out. Then he told Rajan exactly what to do. Rajan called Deepika and said he wanted to do a casual, private chat for background research on a big future profile. He suggested the lobby of her building, relaxed, easy, no fuss. She agreed immediately. She was in a very good mood these days. She was always in a good mood now. The meeting was set for Friday evening at 6 o'clock. On Friday evening, Vijay sat in his car outside the building. Not in the lobby, in his car. Malvika sat beside him, holding a small monitor showing the live camera feed from inside. They watched as Rajan arrived first, set up the table, ordered 2 cups of coffee from the building's small cafe counter. They watched as Deepika came down in the lift, looking beautiful, relaxed, glowing with the easy confidence of a person who has just had the biggest hit of her life. They watched her sit down, smile at Rajan, pick up her coffee. And then they watched Rajan lean forward and say, warmly and casually, this is completely private, just between us, completely off the record, and ask her how she really did it. How she really rose so fast. Vijay watched the small screen. His face was completely still. Malvika watched Vijay, and they waited. At first, Deepika was careful. She talked about hard work, about her nursing days, about how much she had always believed in herself. Standard answers, well practiced, smooth as polished stone. Rajan listened, nodded, said all the right things. Then he leaned in a little closer and said, with a smile that said, I already know the real story. You can tell me, but come on. Between us, Vijay Khanna opened every door for you. How did you manage that? The man hadn't called a producer in years. Something shifted in Deepika's face. The careful, polished version of herself relaxed. The proud version, the real version, the one that had been waiting to speak, moved forward. She laughed. That easy, loose laugh. Look, I am not going to pretend it was by accident, she said. I knew exactly what I was doing from the very beginning. Go on, Rajan said pleasantly. Vijay Khanna has been living in 1987 for the last 20 years, she said. Everyone in the industry knows this. He sits in that big dark house watching his own old films every night. He is completely stuck in his past. He just needed someone to meet him there. In the car outside, Vijay sat very still. On the monitor, Malvika watched Deepika lean back in her chair with the easy, open confidence of someone who feels completely safe. So I did my homework, Deepika continued. Every song, every dialogue, every scene from every film. I knew what made him feel seen. I knew what made him feel important again. And then, she snapped her fingers, I gave it all back to him. Exactly the way he needed to hear it. The hospital was planned? Rajan asked. No, that was luck, she said. Pure luck. But I recognized the opportunity the moment I saw his name on the form. I had maybe 4 days to make an impression. So I used every one of them. She said it simply, without cruelty, almost with pride, the pride of a player describing a clever game. And the way you looked at him? Rajan asked. The way you talked to him? Was all of that a performance, she said, and she smiled. My best one. Better than anything in Pehli Barish, honestly. The poor man genuinely thought I was in love with him. He called every producer in the industry. Used favors that went back 30 years. People who had not returned his calls in years picked up because it was Vijay Khanna asking. She shook her head, still smiling, like she was marveling at her own cleverness. It was brilliant, really. Using his past to build my future. You could not have written it better. The whole country watched. And Deepika, still talking, still smiling, still completely certain she was in a private conversation, kept going. The thing about men like Vijay Khanna, she said, is that they are easy to read once you understand them. They spend their whole lives being the hero. Being the one who saves everyone. So when they start to fade, when the phone stops ringing, all they need is one person to treat them like they are still the hero. Just one person. And they will give you everything. The lobby door opened. Deepika looked up, and every drop of color left her face. Vijay Khanna walked in, not hurrying, never hurrying. The walk that 40 years of audiences had loved, shoulders back, head level, completely at ease, like a man who owned the ground beneath his feet. He looked at Deepika. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Rajan sat very still. Across the country, millions of people watching their television screens also went very still. Vijay looked slowly around the lobby. He looked at the 2 small cameras, so small most people would never notice them, and gave the faintest nod. Then he looked back at Deepika, and then, slowly, deliberately, he began to clap. One clap, then another, steady and unhurried and completely alone in the silence of that lobby. Remarkable, he said. His voice was perfectly calm. Truly remarkable. I have been in this industry for 40 years, Deepika. I have worked alongside the finest actors this country has ever produced. And I want to tell you honestly, that was the best performance I have ever seen. Deepika stood up. Her hands were shaking slightly. Vijay Saab, please, it is not what it sounds like. He held up one hand. Just one. And she stopped. The songs, he continued, as if she had not spoken. Perfect choices. Tufan's theme, inspired. You knew exactly which ones would reach me. The dialogues, your timing was flawless. And the eyes, Deepika. He paused. That specific way of looking at someone that makes them feel like the most important person in the world. I used to do that in my films. I always said the camera cannot lie about the eyes. But you, he tilted his head very slightly, you proved me wrong. On televisions everywhere, the nation watched in complete silence. Vijay Saab, please, I can explain, You were doing what you needed to do to get where you wanted to go, he said. Not unkindly, I understand that better than you know. I was young once too. I also made choices. Also used people. Also told them what they needed to hear. He straightened the cuffs of his jacket. Small, precise. The only thing you forgot, he said, and his voice dropped just slightly, not in sadness, but in something that sounded almost like quiet amusement. The only thing you forgot, Deepika, is that in 40 years, in 73 films, I have never once lost the final scene. He looked at her one last time. He turned. He walked toward the door. The cameras recorded everything. And on screens all across the country, nobody moved, nobody spoke, nobody changed the channel. Because everyone understood, in that moment, that they had just watched something that was not on a film set, not written in a script, not lit by studio lights. They had just watched the real thing. Ramu settled back into the driver's seat. He adjusted the mirror. He put the key in the ignition. Then he turned around, as he always did before starting the car, and looked at Vijay. Saab, shall I start the car? Vijay was leaning back in his seat. Eyes closed, head resting back against the leather. A small smile on his face. The smile from his greatest films. The slow one. The one that came only at the very end of a scene, when everything had been said and done and the truth had finally arrived. I always get my last scene perfect, he said. Vijay Khanna sat with his eyes closed and that small, peaceful, perfect smile on his face. Vijay did not speak again.